African American witness in the city of Dallas. We are getting ready to celebrate our 150th year of existence. Founded by freed slaves in July of 1873. My name is Deaconess Candace Wicks, and I serve as the chairperson for the Government and Political Relations Committee of the New Hope Baptist Church. And on behalf of our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Damian N. Williams, we welcome you to New Hope Baptist Church. Thank you to the candidates who have joined us today for their participation in our forum. And we do want to let you know that we are live on the Facebook page for New Hope Baptist Church, and we also are on YouTube as well. We have Councilman Casey Thomas from District 3 in the audience. Thank you so much, and you're welcome. And we also do have the chairperson for the Dallas Chamber of Commerce here as well. Thank you so much for being here, as well as the Vice President of the National Panhellenic Council Incorporated, and we'll do more specific introductions of our VIPs later in the program. At this time, I do want our Pastor Emeritus, the former mayor of Garland, Texas, the Reverend Dr. Ronald E. Jones, to come and give us the prayer, and then we will proceed with the program.
Thank you, Sister Candace Wicks, and thank you to all the candidates and visitors who've come to be part of this forum. If you will, join me as we go to the Lord in prayer. Eternal Father, we are grateful and for this privilege you've given us to be part of another day, to be physically sound, emotionally stable, and psychologically fit to come out and participate therein. Heavenly Father, we know that you are the creator and origin of all government systems, and no woman or man sit in the seat of power unless you allow them to. And so we take personal privilege in being obedient to pray for those who are in elected positions, and then to seek to support those whom we will, according to thy will and purpose, who seek the office. We ask your blessings upon those who are seeking the office of the various positions that are on the ballot, that you'll be with them, for no greater call is there than the call to serve. Let those who are listening and those who are attentive and present be mindful of what is being said, factor it in, and make a choice of whom they think is better qualified to serve the citizens of this great community. In the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, everybody, I would like to say thank you for coming. My voice does resonate, so please forgive me if you can hear me in the back of the room or through the Zoom. But as we begin, I'm going to first start off with the rules of this candidate forum, and then we're going to get to introductions. Then after the introductions, we are going to move forward with the questions and answers. So first and foremost, I would like to say that this is not a debate. And because this is not a debate, I want to make sure that the candidates do not engage with each other. The focus should be on the questions. Because the focus is on the questions, I also want to make sure that candidates do not interrupt each other, as that is not the focus of this candidate forum. Once again, the focus is to be able to answer the questions. The next thing I want to say is that each candidate will have 2 minutes to be able to answer the questions that are posed to them, and you will be able to answer them in succession. So we're going to move from left to right, so then that way each candidate will have an opportunity to be able to answer the questions that are asked of them. Additionally, as it relates to the format of this candidate forum, I'm going to read a statement, and then that statement is going to be followed up with a question. And then we're going to do that based on various topics. The topics that will be covered in this candidate forum will be everything from jobs to technology to the electrical grid and also to infrastructure as well. There will be no props or no personal staff that will be allowed to be involved in this candidate forum. And also, I want to make sure that I say this: if there is time toward the end of this program, we may be able to have questions from the audience whenever it comes to this candidate forum. And the last and most important rule is this: I want to make sure that everybody remains respectful remains peaceful, and also gives every candidate the opportunity to be able to answer the questions that are once again asked of them. So the next thing that we are going to move forward to are going to be introductions. So this is going to be specifically for the candidates. So whenever you are introducing yourselves, please mention your name, the district that you are running for, and a brief statement of why the people of Dallas should vote for you. All right? Thank you very much. So now we're going to begin with the introductions.
Good morning. My name is Joseph Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R, and I am a candidate for District Council 14. This is my first time running for political office, so everything is news to me. I'm really came here to hear what the problems are that you are having as regards to the city. I have no agenda with or no alliance to any political party, and I'm an engineer, electrical engineer, and I worked on the DART rail system, bringing that to Dallas. I think that's all I've got to say at the moment.
Good morning. My name is Zarin Gracie. I am Dallas City Council candidate for District 3. I've worked for the City of Dallas for over 16 years in the Office of Procurement, Economic Development, the Budget Office, the Controller's Office, and I ran the Office of Business Diversity. In addition to that, I've served as the District 3 City Planning Commissioner, as well as the President for the Dallas Public Facilities Corporation. In addition to that, I'm the executive pastor at Concord Church, and I've served through ministry. I've served my community for a number of years, and really just want to take my service to the next level, using my experience both in the community as well as on staff, and really make a difference in City Hall. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Denise Benavides. I am a candidate for Dallas City Council District 3. I ran in 2019, got pregnant, couldn't run an efficient race, but I got 8.5% of the vote, which told me that this district is asking for a different type of leadership. I sit on different boards. I sit on the board for the Hispanic Women's Network of Texas. I sit on the board for DFW Slow Foods. And I also sit on the board of my own nonprofit called La Monarca Foundation that helps immigrant families when they come into the United States. We help them transition. I feel that the people should vote for me because our district is changing. The numbers, the demographics show that it is important that we show diversity in our district. I am first generation Mexican American. I am fully bilingual. And we have various parts of our district that have been severely underserved. And so that's what I'm here to do, to help the community that needs to be heard and to include all people.
Hi, my name is Serrano Keith Baldio, and usually I'm the president of a newspaper. I'm usually over there, not over here. But the reason that I'm over here is because in this election in Dallas, this is the lowest quality of candidates that they are. I had a newspaper in an all-minority community. I saw their needs, and I went after the government consistently and politically to try to get them to fulfill the needs of the minority community, and they consistently failed in that effort. In so much that they tried to shut down my newspaper 4 times with criminal charges and everything they could, but I'm still standing here today because the law says that I can call out the government on their incompetence and everything that they're not doing to help the minority community. In District 10, it's segregated. It's like Highlands, and then it's the rest of us. We're 64% minority in the community, but we keep losing. There's no representation. They're trying to shut down a church right now and demolish it. We should be building churches, not shutting it down. There's no resources or multi-purpose center to help the 64% minority in my community who looks like me. But everything goes to Lake Highlands because that's the base that elects people. So my job is to get minorities to come out and vote and elect me so I can represent them for resources, money, jobs, and everything that needs to build that community, not dump poverty housing in it and tell us that's all we're worth. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm Priscilla Shacklett. If you click my name up, comes Priscilla Presley. So hopefully that will help you remember who I am. I'm running for office because I have the time now to devote full-time to the situations that are going on here that affect everybody. My background is strong in business, which I bring to the table. I graduated from college with a degree in education, secondary education in English, and I went to work for AT&T. For 12 years, I worked in revenue accounting. I worked my way up. I was responsible for millions and millions of dollars of income, how we spent it, the accountability for where we ended up at the end of every single month. I had to describe and delve into what was going on, where we were dispersing our money, and budget for the following year. My job was to make an efficient, profitable company, and I had many people to answer to, including the Public Utilities Commission. This was in California. I was a computer programmer. I became a systems analyst in the same company, so I understand technology. I understand how we can apply it to what we're trying to understand is going on in our community. I won't be snowed. I am a realtor. I was not anymore. I'm now just a property manager, but I became a realtor. I worked with people who were getting their first homes. I worked with subdivisions. I worked with subdividing. I worked with homeowners associations and so on, placing people in homes and learning about community property values and that sort of thing. One of the jobs of the city council is to make vital use of the property we have and the resources we have. I understand that. I did it for banks and for the public. The last 10 years, when I moved to Dallas, I was taking care of my grandson, and it was a full-time job because both of his parents worked. So I am completely familiar with the current opportunities of parents, and I will know what parents are going through. I do know. I was just there, and now I'm ready to devote my time to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as I previously stated, we're going to start on particular topics. I'm going to read a statement. Then following that statement will be a question, and I'm going to give each candidate an opportunity to be able to answer the question that is posed for them. So this first topic that we're going to start off with is crime. So the statement is this. On January 3rd, 2023, Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia released crime numbers for the city of Dallas, showing that violent crime in the city went down for the second consecutive year. But those same numbers also showed that robberies in businesses and victims were up close to 4%. This is concerning considering my own personal experience of calling the police to report a break-in at my grandfather's law office, the law office of the first black judge in Dallas County, where no one came for more than a few hours. My question is this: what would you say to the people of the city when calls to the police department go unanswered or not responded to in a timely manner? Candidate.
I'm not sure of the current staffing with the police, but when I looked it up last July of 2022, round about 500 officers were short. They needed to hire about 500 officers. People say get cops on the beat. Can't do it if the officers are not there. We need to be able to keep officers, not just that they hire and then eventually leave. We've got to give them proper salaries so that they don't leave Dallas and go to, say, quote unquote, safer communities. Get the police out on the beat and not just sitting in their vehicles, and give them a good salary. Thank you.
Thank you. In particular, in District 3, we understand that there are parts of the community, particularly in that Mountain Creek area, where calls can be delayed. In this case, it's because the lack of a substation to cover that area. We have that substation there in the district, but we need one closer to cover the areas over in that Mountain Creek area. So that's the first thing. Second thing, he touched on it, is the recruitment. We understand that recruiting police officers can be a challenge, as well as understanding that as we're recruiting police officers, that officers are retiring, changing careers, changing cities, and things like that. So one, yes, I think we've done a good job in terms of protecting the police budget and allocating that to not just focus just on crime, but also focus on the needs of the community in terms of the if it's a mental call or a less threatening call. I think we've done a job to do that. So one way is to make sure that those calls and the funds are allocated to address those type of calls. As it relates to the robberies and those minor crimes that are happening, again, it's just there's a public service, but then there's a customer service, and I think that's the other piece that we really want to focus on, particularly as it relates to the city of Dallas. And we do a good job focusing on public service, not always delivered in the best fashion, but one of the pieces is the customer service and making sure that we are responding in a timely manner.
Wow. So in our district, District 3, we have a whole precinct that's in Grand Prairie that does not get police response right away. And the reason for that is, like what was said, we need a substation in that area to help cover that area. But also, I think it's important that we involve the police officers into our community. What I mean by that is, I feel like the police officers have to be, number one, invested in our community. If they're patrolling a precinct, but yet they don't live in that area, and they just go home to a whole different part of Dallas, or maybe out of Dallas, and I feel like that's one of the problems. In our Hispanic community, we have Unidos, which is a great program that partners up. It's police officers who cater to the Hispanic community. And I think if we have more of police officers getting involved in our community and obviously recruiting more officers, that would help a lot with the crime. There's a lot of crime in our districts, and I really think that, like I said, getting our police officers involved in the community and getting to know who are the people that live in the areas that they're patrolling is very important.
So, quiet as is kept, Dallas did a $500,000 study on the police department. And they found that more cops would not answer the question. Everybody's saying more cops, less crime. That's not true, because their own study said it's not more cops, more crime. It's that the police department is not effective and efficient as it's supposed to be. Now, what did they do with that study? Nothing. You just examined yourself and you found the problem, but they didn't fix it. I speak to police officers who are very low in morale. They have no leadership helping them. They don't feel connected to the chief. One officer said he hasn't even met the chief since he's been here. But the thing that we have to understand is there's something called social psychology for a community. And when a community feels that it has no leadership, like we're all fighting to be, and there's nobody to go to, they will be doing their own stuff, committing crime, running around, doing all kind of stuff. When I showed a photograph of me with a kid who was shot in the hospital with a bullet.
Excuse me. I would once again like to remind every candidate that there should not be any props.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Yes.
All right. So anyway, that mother called me instead of all the 11 officials to come to the hospital, because she felt when I speak to the community as the president of a newspaper, they listen to me. And I think with that kind of leadership, I can get the community involved and that kind of unified with the mothers and the fathers to let them know, if you have a problem, you don't need to run to the cops all the time. As the leader of District 10, you come to me. If you feel like shooting somebody because you got a beef with them, come to me before I have to tell my detectives to come find you. So my leadership will be out there open in the community, especially my minority community, where the problems are. And seeing somebody like me and knowing my office is open and you come to me before you do something stupid, I think that would help. So my thing is just, it's not just the police, it's all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the police department needs to be run more like a business. Right now, As far as I know, they do not have a signing bonus, and they do not have a retention bonus. If you sign on with our police department, you should get a bonus right now because we are so short of police. That will attract police officers from other places. Dallas is a beautiful place to live and work, and we need to attract, and we can attract police officers. If they're given an adequate signing bonus, they will be incentivized to stay, because if they don't, part of the contract will be that they return part of that signing bonus based on how long they stay. Year number 2, perhaps another one. Once they stay on our force long enough and we are adequately enforced with police officers that crime starts going down, I believe we will see an improvement in the happiness and the longevity of our police department. I would also like to speak towards getting our children to learn what laws mean at an early age. I would enforce crosswalk enforcement near the elementary schools and middle schools, so kids learn there are laws early. If they don't follow the crosswalk rules, then they can go and do some community service around the school. Start learning that laws apply to people. Let's help our police and build a better, healthier children's community as well.
Thank you very much. The second statement that I have is this. In November 2022, the Dallas Morning News requested every justifiable homicide incident report, but the department, as of the time they ended up releasing the article, did not respond to the request. Justifiable homicides, for those who do not know, are not listed in the police statistics whenever it comes to fatal homicides. And unfortunately, that means the killings of Kyle Dale and Donathy Dottie are not also listed as well. So my question is this: when it comes to media and access to information such as this, should media outlets be able to access this information? And if not, what is the reason why media outlets like the Dallas Morning News should not have access to these kind of reports?
I'm a great believer in the Freedom of Information Act. I've been dealing with Dallas Area Rapid Transit on that issue, and it's very, very difficult to get answers from these authorities. Although it's nothing to do with it's nothing to do with this district, but they come back and tell me that it's security and the public interest that we do not divulge this information. Well, that's a load of nonsense in my case. And all we can do is just keep asking for the information. You are entitled to it as the public, and just keep asking and asking and asking. What is it they say in the good book? Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door will be open to you. So persevere. Keep asking for all information.
Thank you. Access to information for, I believe it's justifiable homicides is the question. One thing that we need to factor in, first and foremost, I believe in a transparent government. Absolutely. I think if the information is available, it needs to be submitted to the public. That's first and foremost. However, there can be some conditions that apply in terms of, considering the people involved in that crime, the families that are involved in that crime. Is it still under investigation? Is it still ongoing from that perspective? So as long as it's an active investigation from there, I think there needs to be some level of consideration in releasing certain information. But once that information is closed and the situation is closed, then I think absolutely that information should be made available to the public there. But I think there still needs to be some consideration for those families who've gone through those traumatic events as well.
Transparency is key, and should that information be released? Yes. But there's also very delicate information in those reports. And until all the details are figured out, then I believe that information should be private until the family is okay with that information being released. And like I said, transparency is key, but in a lot of these reports, there's a lot of sensitive information that maybe the family is not aware of yet, or maybe they haven't processed completely. And so I think respecting the privacy of the family is important also.
So we're talking about the media, not private families, because private families can go to the prosecutor's office, have private meetings, and they can explain things to them. So I am media, and I try to get information all the time, and they tell me no. I remember in New Jersey, the mayor's son was caught stealing something, and the report was closed. And I filed for a copy of the report, and they said it was open. But two officers who was friendly with my newspaper came to me and says, here's the report, and it says closed. Yet, they said the report was still open and they couldn't give it to me. And I just did an interview with the Observer, and this question came up, and I said, I am going to create a liaison for the press in my office because I am the press. And the only information that I would be barred from is the ones that ongoing investigation that will affect the investigation. There's information that does not affect the investigation, and if I go to the lawyers, city lawyers, and the police chief, and I say, look, does this affect the investigation? And he says no, then it's being released through my office, through my liaison, my press liaison, to the press, to the Dallas Morning News, the News 7, or whoever wants it. My office will create that liaison, and I said it to the Observer 3 weeks ago, because it's important that the press gets information from the government to give it to the people. And right now, that is not happening in Dallas or any other city. But because I'm already the press, and I know what information needs to go, and sometimes people do an Oprah, they have to wait 7 days. No. When I am the councilman of District 10, you come to me, you said they're not giving it to you, my liaison will go and get it for you, and you can get it through my office because I have the authority to do that. Oh, and if it says it's sensitive, I'll ask the chief, is it sensitive? Because I know how this works. Well, it's not going to affect the investigation. Good. Then send it to my office, give it to the press, because every press have a timeline. They have a deadline, and I will make sure they meet that deadline. Thank you.
My feeling is that we want to get the clearest, most transparent information out to the public that we possibly can. We've had a lot of misunderstandings between the government, the press, and the people. We've had a lot of unfortunate deaths because of people getting wrong information. And then we've had people who haven't gotten justice because of wrong information. So I believe in transparency. I understand that about a liaison between the government and a trusted press where we get the truth. If we get information too early sometimes, we get the wrong impression of what happened. It's important, especially when homicide is involved, that the people understand what happened, they believe that justice will ultimately come, and you're guilty, or you're innocent, excuse me, totally off. You're innocent until you're proven guilty. Clear, concise, interesting, clear, genuine, honest information. That's what the public is looking for, and I think we'll have a peaceful society if we start communicating with one another.
Thank you very much. For the next question on crime, the statement is this. When Chief Eddie Garcia took over the Dallas Police Department, the department began working with criminologists from the University of Texas at San Antonio. After dividing the city of Dallas into football field-sized plots, the department noticed that just 50 out of the more than 100,000 of those plots accounted for as much as 10% of the entire city's violent crime. This has led to the Dallas Police Department increasing its presence in those particular areas. This model is even being accepted in other Texas cities, such as San Antonio. But this is not done without some pushback. Some city councilors are concerned about the collateral damage this style of policing can cause to community members who live in those areas, especially in the wake of the murder of Tyree Nichols by the Memphis Police Department. The question is this: do you have any concerns about this style of hotspot policing? If so, what are they? And what can the city do to make sure these policing practices are done to keep community members safe and prevent collateral damage?
Well, I think the figures speak for themselves. According to what they're saying, the figures released since Eddie Garcia became the police chief, the crime has gone down, and because of these, what he's saying about saturating certain areas, I think Deep Ellum is a good example of that. So I'll go along with what the experts are saying, and if the figures bear out what Chief Garcia is doing, then more power to him.
As it relates to, I believe it's what do you call it? Hotspot policing. Hotspot policing. I think the science and the rationale behind that approach, I understand that. I think where it can get a little bit off base is in terms of managing the expectations up front. I think, as a leader, when you establish a certain new strategy or an approach to something, I think it's very clear to set the expectation for those that will be managing that process, to set that expectation up front. Just to give you an example, had an incident in my neighborhood, love my neighborhood, Capella Park, but we had an incident where he was the head of our neighborhood security, our committee. He was sitting in his car having a conversation, and one of the neighbors called the police. Now, we had to have a conversation within the community in terms of what that looks like when you call the police. You call the police super excited, like you literally have a gun pointed to your head, then that's how they're going to show up. In the same situation, I think when you come up with this and you understand that these are the hot spots within the city where the crime is high, if you're an athlete, a soldier, whatever you may be, that automatically gets you amped up. And I think it's the responsibility of leadership to bring that down and help manage how they go into these communities and how they respond to these calls. Understanding, yes, it is high crime and it is violent crime in some cases, but there's still community and people that live around that, and we need to be sensitive to that. And I think having that conversation before they go into those communities and doubling down and making sure and reinforcing that, I think will have a significant impact, as well as mobilizing the community to assist them in that effort as well. So it's not just the police going in thinking they got to go and clean up something, change something. It's also working with the community. And in many cases where there's violent crime, there are a lot that are helping already.
I feel like hotspot policing is very much targeting a community because arguments can get heated and the cops could come in and into a situation that they really don't know what transpired to get the people to that point. So again, I'm talking about getting the police involved in our communities to get to know the people that live in our communities, because if you're calling an area hotspot crime, but yet there's children living there, there's mothers living there, there's fathers living there, there's little kids living there, that don't think of their community like that, they're gonna feel like they're targeted. And especially in my district, District 3, that has a lot of immigrant families that come from traumatizing situations in their own countries, that see police as being militarized, that triggers trauma, that triggers mental health issues. So how is a police officer gonna target a spot and say it's hotspot policing when there's a mental health issue probably in that area that has not been addressed? There is severe trauma in that area that hasn't been addressed. So again, I'm going back to getting the police involved in their community, getting to know our community, getting to know who lives there in order to be able to police our community in the correct way and help all people in our district feel safe. And that includes LGBTQ, that includes Hispanic, Spanish-speaking only community members, and that includes African American, English-speaking only community members.
So a patient comes in the hospital and he's got a bite on the leg. The doctor is not going to work on his arm. So that's what that study basically said, work on the leg. I'm not going to fight with the chief here because I've not sat down with him. I don't know his plan. He seems like a nice guy. But thank God the cops in my community, District 10, are wonderful people. And if you ever come into one of my places gun blazing, we're going to have a problem. So I want to make sure that under my environmental social psychology, we deal with the community from the root of the problem, not trying to cut off the branches. So I want to make sure the cops in my district, when they go, District 10, when you go after the community, that you are went in there first. And since we're in the church, do you remember when they went into the promised land they were going into, they sent 12 men instead of going guns blazing into the promised land? I want to make sure the cops send people in, meet the community, know them. And there are hot spots, and there are criminals in District 10. I mean, deadly criminals. But I don't want you coming in gun blazing to hurt them or other people. Send in the men. Do your work, which they did, and they found 21 hardened criminals in District 10. So they're doing the right thing in District 10, but I'm not sure about the murders, the gun shooting, all that kind of stuff. The chief has to explain that to me, what went wrong, what could go wrong, what can be avoided. And like I said, I haven't sat down with the chief. I don't know his plan, because he can't really talk about his tactics publicly. And unless I hear that, I can't really oppose anything that he's doing right now. So I would like to when I sit down with him, I'm sure he's going to tell me. But for right now, there's no gun blazing in my district unless you have intel, major intel into that crime area, and you're going in because of that intel when nobody else can get hurt. But again, do the root work, do the root problems in District 10 to find out who's who, what's what, because I know we got criminals there, and I'd like to see them gone. But I'm just going to trust the chief for now in District 10, and I love the cops we have, they're good, so I'm just going to leave it as that. Thank you.
Good police need to be brought on our force. We do have a lot of very good police, but this recent murder where 5 police officers ambushed and killed a gentleman revealed that one of them was an actual felon. If we lower our standards because we're not willing to pay our police officers, then that's what we're going to end up with. We need to be very selective in the police officers we get. I think that just makes sense. We have plenty of reports everywhere on Nextdoor of minor crimes, I guess you would call it, where people don't even report them anymore. People's handbags are getting stolen, their cars are being broken into, the tires are missing. All these things, people don't even know if they're supposed to call the police anymore. So when we talk about hot spots, I think they need police to come there and save the citizens that live in those communities. I don't have a problem with identifying where police officers are needed. I want to make sure the police officers that show up are good police officers. So that's where I am. And I also want to look at the demographics of who is committing crime now. I think we have to have the police go into our high schools and become part of the fabric of our schools so that the kids who are starting to become vulnerable and may commit crimes know the police, know that they're there for them, and have a community.
Thank you. The next topic that we are going to discuss now is going to be jobs. So with that, the statement is this. There's a Dallas College certification program in South Dallas that connects workers to skills, jobs in high demand that gives those who enroll in the program an opportunity to earn 5 certifications in mechatronics, where they will master mechanical drives, power fluid, programmable logic controllers, electrical motor controls, and robotics. Question is this: considering programs like this can be impactful for the workforce and businesses in the city of Dallas, how would you, 1, make sure the number of programs like this exist, and 2, how community members can continue to access programs like this across the city?
That sounds like a very good program that they've started. When I was I worked for 3 or 4 years in Puerto Rico, and the government there, as part of the contract, they required that student interns got hired by the companies doing the work, and that proved to be a great success. We had the local students learning what excuse me, learning what working was all about. And actually one of the interns that worked there came and joined me in Dallas, and he's working in Dallas now. So yes, I will give every encouragement to companies giving teaching children, young boys and girls, how to do things. One thing that when we opened the DART rail system in Dallas in the 1990s, one of the students told me how great it was that he could then travel from the outskirts into El Centro College, and that made me feel really good on what I had been trying to do.
So this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Just a quick story about myself. Prior to this, I grew up in Kansas City, and prior to getting my intern, I got an intern through En-ROADS, if you're familiar with that. En-ROADS intern, my junior year, just before my senior year in high school, ended up working for a bank downtown. Prior to that intern, I'd never been downtown. Now, if you know anything about Kansas City, basically 0, and the higher the number goes, the further south you go. I lived on 29th Street, and 0 is downtown. I'd never been downtown prior to that intern. That intern changed the trajectory of my life. That intern changed the trajectory of my friends, because my first experience at lunchtime, there I bought myself a shirt and tie and all of that, and just opened my eyes to, I'd seen black people, professional black people. I'd never seen that before. So jobs can change the trajectory, and access to those jobs can change trajectory. When I was at the City of Dallas, I worked in the economic development, and I managed the workforce program. And we worked with many of those, Dallas College, program down in South Dallas, and all of these, understanding that all of these jobs and these trainings are there, but making sure that we had access. Before I left, I wanted to make sure any organization that calls the City of Dallas thinking of relocating to the city, I wanted to connect with their HR almost immediately. Usually there's about a 2 to 3 year time frame before they come, and I wanted to make sure that they were connected to the HR to understand their needs, so that I could connect the HR and those companies to these job programs, and have the folks, as they're graduating, as they're starting, when they finish, they're already in a job. I think this idea of coming to the city, then having a job fair, it is effective, but I think it's better if we can already have the folks working by the time the folks move and relocate, before they move and relocate.
As a mother of 4 children, my oldest being 9 years old, I understand how important it is to talk to our young people about work and about getting jobs. And so I think in order to get these programs throughout the whole city, would be partnering up with nonprofits. I love the nonprofit sector. There's so many people that nonprofits serve. They're so diverse. And I think including the diversity of the nonprofits and extending these programs through the nonprofits is very important. I also think partnering up with obviously the school board trustee that's in our district to expand these programs and to start with early, just early jobs. I'm a small business owner, my husband's a mechanic, and I'm a licensed car dealer, and I myself have participated in encouraging young mechanics from Dubisky High School, actually in Grand Prairie. They're already going through mechanic school in Dubisky. We have taught them how to serve real life situations in your job. So I think these programs, yes, should be expanded, and through nonprofit work and through community work, and just letting the community know that these programs exist and where they are.
I think this issue creates a huge problem. If I wanted to build a factory in Dallas to make components for computers, I don't have the workforce. I don't have the trained workforce for residents of Dallas. So now I have to go back and say, how do I train these people in Dallas for what I want to build? Those jobs that you call up there, we don't have the workforce for it because they're not trained for it. So a lot of people come from Kansas, Arkansas, whatever, they live outside Dallas, and they drive in to take those jobs. The only thing you could do is encourage or require by law 40% of those businesses hire people from Dallas residents. And then it comes back to one. They're not trained. So now you got to go back and train them. There was a gentleman by the name of Edward Deming who went to Japan when Japan was a nothing country after we bombed it. And Edward Deming was the American who made Japan the powerful country it is today because the people were ready, willing, motivated, wanted to work, wanted to train. We don't have that. And we need to implement that first. And that's not an easy thing to implement. But as a leader, as leaders for District 10, I need to tell these people, this is what you need to do to get the jobs that you just mentioned. And you have to be trained for those jobs. Otherwise, outsiders are going to get it. So we can't say, hey, here's all these jobs, give it to Dallas residents. Dallas residents may not be ready for those jobs. But if they are, you have to encourage the company or implement a plan for the company to hire 40% at least of Dallas residents who are qualified for those jobs. So that's the problems that we're facing with that right now. Thank you.
When I decided to run about a month ago, not very long, one of the first things I looked into was one of the hot spots in my district, which is Vickery Branch, Vickery Park. It is an underserved community, high-density housing, and I wanted to know more about it. I drove over and I saw this gorgeous high school, but according to greatschools.com, the graduates, or the people that get through most of the high school there, are not prepared to move on in life. The rating that greatschools.com gave this school is a 3 out of 10. Many of the kids are barely proficient in English and math. They're not really prepared to go on with life. So I was really concerned when I saw that one of the city council members was a liaison between the principal and city council, supposed to be listening to what the issues were. Why are we turning out children that aren't able to just function? What I learned, which was very positive, is that there is a trade school under construction right now in Walnut Hill area. Kids from that high school will be bused to this trade school. And maybe they're not all college bound, but they are going to be able to learn a trade and become productive in our community. The school doesn't get a lot of publicity, but I will absolutely be behind this school and others like it to help kids that are not college bound make themselves productive citizens and useful to our community.
Thank you very much. So for the next question, as it relates to jobs, is this. The city of Dallas is about to go through some major changes, with the Dallas City Council approving plans for a new $2 billion convention center and the construction of Southern Gateway Park. With these new projects are also concerns that minority business leaders and workers, especially those from the Black, Hispanic, and Asian communities, may be unable to participate in those projects or will not be adequately represented in the contracts and workforce. So my question is this: what can be done to ensure there is minority representation in the contracts and workforce for these particular projects?
I'm surprised that you're saying that because when I've been working with DART and other transit agencies all over the United States, it's in the contract, the goals. It's maybe around about 6% for DBE goals, women minority goals. You put it in the contract to the who would be the prime contractors, and they've got to meet those goals. That's it.
One of the last things I did before I left the city was completed the city's availability and disparity study. And that's really a study that's done in order to check the availability in the Dallas market, the availability of minority and women-owned businesses in the Dallas market, to see what the percentage, the participation percentage could be. When we finished that study, as an example, I think construction was 25%. The goal was 25% minority participation. On the other side of that, we ended up, because of the availability, we ended up changing those goals to like 32%. I ran the office that managed that program. So one of the things I'm especially looking forward to is coming back to the city to see there were a number of recommendations to help increase minority and women-owned business participation on city contracts. So that'll be one of the first things I'll be coming back to check to see what was implemented from there, and then making sure that we continue to implement those changes. More specifically, I managed during that time the participation on the Redbird Mall as an example, to ensure that we had minority and women-owned participation on that. In this case, Peter Brodsky, the owner of the mall, understood what it meant to the community and had no problem, so we were able to get a significant amount of participation. The number slips my mind now, but it's just a matter of monitoring and ensuring that the participation, not only what they say they're going to do, but what they actually do on the other side of the project, their particular phase of the project, making sure that they stick to those participation goals. My office worked with those minority contractors when there were problems. They were listed but not being utilized. Our office had conversations in order to protect the relationship between the minority contractor as well as the prime contractor. We would have those conversations to preserve the business relationship, but also make sure, hold them accountable to meeting the goal. I will continue that in my office.
As a business owner who's a woman and who's also a minority, being Mexican, I think it's important to have informational sessions on what is available for a small business owner to participate with the City of Dallas. Sometimes these processes are very difficult. I know for myself, it is very difficult sometimes to go through the process. You don't understand it. There's all these questions, especially when you're a small business owner and when you're like myself, who's a mom and pop. So I think it's important to, my type of leadership is grassroots, so the people don't come to me, I'm gonna go to the people. So I'm gonna seek out those minority businesses, those black and brown businesses that could contribute to the growth of our city and to the growth of the contractors that we need. And so that's very important. And so like I said, informational sessions are important, going to the people and seeking out those minority businesses that could contribute to the projects that are going on within the City of Dallas.
I'll tell you what you can do for minority rights. You can vote for me, Dallas District 10, number 3, because I become the stick, I become the whip for the people that don't want to give equal share, fair share. What I would do is by mandate, what I would do by policy, is to make sure that minorities get fair share of the convention center. And if the folks on the other side doesn't understand what fair share means, I know how to explain it to them legally. So being on the city council and having that power, I'm telling you, there's a lot of power in the city council. You get things done that, nope, I don't even think that the council people sitting there knows what they can do. But fair share will be my policy on the convention center. And having me on the city council is having a watchful eye on fair share. So if I see it not happening, I know what to do. I know who to go to make sure fair share on the convention center is implemented to minorities equally. We have a diversity office here. We have a racial equality office here. And all those things are tools. People don't understand that the city council members' seat is a tool to get you what you want. But if you're a minority and you want those tools, unfortunately, you have to vote for a minority, because I've been here. I see the advantage that they have over us, that they can do, but I know how to fight that, because as the president of a newspaper in a minority community, I have fought this fight before. Like when they're trying to demolish the church right now, the Cornerstone Church in District 10, I said, no, we can use that for training. We can use that for performance. We can use that for community engagement and all these things, discussions just like this, multi-purpose. So we can engage the convention center and says, fair share is my policy on you. Make it happen, or I know how to use the city council seat in the law to make it happen. Thank you.
The Dallas City budget for the 22-23 fiscal year is $4.5 billion. The convention center is proposed to be a $2 billion project. Imagine half of our operating budget effectively will go into this. It's a gigantic, gigantic project. I'm looking at it from a business point of view again, and I hope a practical point of view. our diversity groups and that sort of thing need to make sure that every community, every race, every minority in the area is notified of the project and what all the opportunities there are. And then they're aware so they can apply to be part of the $2 billion project. Half of our community now is minority. It's getting there. And so it's not fair if they're not informed that certain gigantic projects are happening. Let's make sure everyone knows the applicants are people that we're judging on their merit, that they can perform the tasks, so that when we get this final project completed, all of us who are taxpayers, who pay for rent here, who do anything and everything, have a convention center that is worthy of our city, that brings business and revenue into our city. That's the ultimate goal, and that everyone has an opportunity to participate. So let's have the diversity group notify the community. Every minority business and women's group can have an opportunity to be part of it. That's the big deal. Base it on merit.
So moving forward to the next topic, which will be education. School safety is a major topic of discussion after last year's massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. This is especially the case considering some of the gun laws in the state. The question that follows is this: when it comes to school security and safety, should the Dallas Police Department play a greater role in the Dallas Independent School District? If so, how? And if not, why not?
Yes. Yes, the police are the ultimate authority. The police should be involved in it. They need to, and there needs to be inspection by the police to make sure that the schools are following the requirements, keeping doors locked, not leaving them ajar, that teachers know how to react when there's an alarm goes off, that the schools inside need to have the doors properly locked, that they can, that in an alarm situation, that all that costs money, and but it really needs, say, the police to go around and check those things are happening and keep the children safe.
I have to say this too. I'm going to yield some of my time just to go back and say, because the president of the Dallas Black Chamber, or the chair of the Black Chamber, sitting there, and I happen to be on the Black Chamber too. So going back to that last question, I will also continue to work as a board member for the Black Chamber, former board member for regional Black contractors and Hispanic contractors and all of the minority groups. I will continue to work with them, but I had to say that because he folded his arm when I failed to mention that, so I'm just messing with him. Anyway, on your question, as far as education with the DIS, listen, I'm not going to pretend to know everything, and one thing I don't know, or one thing I do know, is we started this conversation talking about the shortage of police officers, so the idea of trying to stretch the DPD even more to be into the Dallas schools, I think could potentially stretch them. What I will say, and I don't know if they're already doing this, but I think there is an opportunity for both the DISD police and the DPD police, and even the DART police, if they're not working together and communicating as one, to understand what the full cycle as it relates to the public safety, what those needs are, and making sure that they're working together almost as if they're one unit. I know they're separate, but making sure they're working together. I don't know if that's happening now, but if it's not, that is a recommendation I would do, because there's some overlap in terms of training, overlap in terms of addressing those mental issues, drug issues, things like that. So there's some opportunity, but I don't recommend, I just don't know that we can afford to have DPD as involved in DISD when they already have a DISD police.
So I'm going to try to talk about this without getting emotional, because Uvalde was very difficult for the Hispanic community. Let me just say that. Also, the police failed Uvalde. They failed that school, that community, the people that were there. As a mother of 4 children, 2 which are in school, My kids are going, one's a kindergartner. They are going through training on how to hide from an active shooter. That killed me. That broke my heart when my son told me. I remember when I was little, I was raised in California, specifically Compton. So I know the issues. I mean, I was raised in the hood. But I remember when I was little, we would worry about fires and earthquakes, not about having an active shooter in your school. So with that said, we need to handle this in a compassionate way because children, especially little kids that are kindergartners, first graders, don't understand the society that we live in. They think, my son thinks that he could beat up a guy with a gun. He's 9. How do I explain to him that that is not possible and that he can get shot and killed? How do you explain that to a kindergartner? So this has to be dealt with compassion, sensitivity, and we have to understand that putting more police in our schools is also traumatizing because a lot of these kids come from immigrant families where in their countries, again, police is militarized. So I believe we should have some type of task force, some type of conversation first with DISD and of course the parents and figuring out how to make our schools safe, but it has to be done in a sensitive issue and in a way that's compassionate and also that parents understand how to relay this message to their young children.
It's unfortunate that we live in a society where young folks want to kill young folks. I think the police department should be in the schools because that's the doorway of protection. But I also think we need more vision here and that the police department needs to stay one step ahead. I think the police department needs to have a zone outside the school, not just inside playing defense. And I think that's missing. So they need to go outside the zone, and they don't have to do it. There are security companies that does it. So they can stay at the door, the security company does that. But it's unfortunate that this is what we have to do. But if you look at something like 9/11, you can never be too careful. People cross our borders, they live in our country, and they do this to us. So no matter how much security you put up, if they want to get through it, they'll get through it, or they'll wait outside for those kids. Something will happen. So that's why we need to make an effort inside the community. All those mothers who have single boys outside there playing around, no school, no education, that's a potential killer, as far as I'm concerned. So we need to get into the community and find them before they find us. And that's why this FBI says, you know, we can't make a mistake once. All they have to do is to get through. All the time we have to watch them. One time on their hand is we get hit. So it's unfortunate we live in Dallas, and kids are going crazy. Kids are going crazy all over the place. But again, it's the mood of the community. It's kids that have nothing to do. So we got to go find them. We can't just stay here and play defense. We got to go find out what's going on in the community. We have to do that kind of intel to the mothers that have kids that's not doing anything. And those kids are going to come after your kids. So what we have to do is to expand the defense for the kids. So do I think that DPD should be in the school? Absolutely. I spoke to Chief Major Phyllis yesterday, and after the shooting of the murder of one kid, she said her officers are already in the school. But that's not enough. We need to have intel, we need to expand, and we need to go further to find out who those boys are that not to do anything that's going to come after these kids. And I think they do a good job. They watch the social media, they see them going crazy, and they try to ask them questions, they go after them. But I think we need to have a more suspicious, not us, the community, but the police department, to go after them. Thank you.
Well, a big problem at Uvalde was the lack of security for the school facility. A door was left open, a crazy person went into the school, and everything went down that was just atrocious and horrible for children. The police department responded, but didn't go in to save those babies. People were being shot while they stood outside the school until they got brave enough to go in. I'm not exactly sure what all the dynamic was there, but this involves police training specific to schools. It involves school security. Teachers and the people involved in the schools need to be sure that the doors are locked, the simple things like that. and that we do have a particular budget. It is now at $1.8 billion, where we can find money to have security officers in the school. Again, going back to my crosswalk thing, I want kids to learn at an early age what laws mean, and there will be consequences if you break them. Hopefully that will follow them through from kindergarten till they are graduating from high school and know that laws matter. They do. We are a community, all of us, of love, and we want our children to feel loved. When I grew up, we learned how to duck under our desks in case we got bombed. And I grew up okay. I mean, the kids need to know security steps to take. If the school is under attack, they need to know what to do. I don't think there's anything wrong. I'm sorry if it will traumatize kids more if they are attacked than it will be for them to have a routine in place where they kind of know that one person does this and one person does that, and they'll all be safe. It's part of being a responsible school community. Children can learn. They'll be okay. Be safe.
So as we move forward, I do want to point out that this is an emotional topic, personal topic for a lot of people, so I just want to take a moment to say thank you to the candidates for answering openly and honestly. So the next question that I have about education is this. The COVID-19 pandemic has made teaching difficult, that is the reality, and it has also caused a teacher shortage in the state as well, which has led more than 40 school districts around the state to move to a 4-day school week. Considering that that is the case, also Mesquite ISD was one of the school districts that also considered this move as well. My question is this: should Dallas ISD possibly consider a 4-day work week whenever it comes to teachers in the classroom? And as a slight follow-up, what is the balance whenever it comes to the priorities between the needs of the teachers, parents, and students?
No, I'm definitely against going to a 4-day school week. We've spoken on other questions about the lack of education of students, younger people coming forward, that they can't read, they can't write. That going to a 4-day work week is not an answer. Definitely is not an answer. If anything, extend the school days. How do you do that? Well, get more teachers trained, or use, have the children need to be there. Children working from home on Zoom doesn't work out. Have the teachers there, have the children there, and give them a proper education so that they can meet the demands of industry when they leave school.
I've shared this story many times. My mom was an educator. My father-in-law is an educator. My stepmother-in-law is an educator. My mother-in-law was an educator. My wife is an educator. So I can appreciate the stress and the strains that teachers have in the classrooms, even before the pandemic, the stress and the strain that teachers have there. We've learned, especially during that pandemic, I don't know about y'all's households, but I was convinced that my kid was gonna have to repeat the grade because, leaving it up to us and trying to make sure that they're there, and we also have careers and things like that, it can be a strain on families from that perspective. But I think, to my guys' point here, I think from an education perspective, I don't know that children can afford a 4-day week. There's too much that, educationally, a lot of our children are behind. So I think that 4-day week would only continue to cause a decline in their education. Now, with that said, I think there's, and again, understanding education isn't necessarily the job of the city council and things like that, but I think there's conversations that we are having, and that can continue to be had to figure out a better way to address that and address the needs of the teachers. Yes, some of it was pandemic, some of it is in curriculums and the things that they're changing that they seem to, nobody seems to have control, especially teachers, or a say in what that can look like, and pay. So you have a lot of other factors that are contributing to the decline in teachers there. But I think from a policy perspective, I think we can continue to work with DISD to figure out why teachers are leaving and see if we can put some things in place to keep them in terms of salaries that they've demanding and deserve, as well as just in terms of the structure. But I think that's something that we can work together with DISD to work through.
COVID was very difficult for me to teach my kids and be a small business owner. At the time, I only had one in school, and he did fail. We did, stay a grade. But no, we shouldn't have a 4-day school week because sometimes parents can't afford that. Parents have to pay for after-school programs and all these things so that their children can participate in because they're working. They don't get off till 5, 6, depending on traffic. They sometimes get home later. And so I think it's important, number one, to give teachers more money. Teachers do a lot for our children. And they deal with a lot of little personalities. I have 4 at home, and they all are unique to their own personalities. So I think teachers are angels because they deal with a lot of little kids that we don't know the situation at home. There could be trauma, so they act up in class. And, teachers have to be patient, so we have to give teachers more money. That is starting a fact. And we also have to provide them with supplies. A lot of the times teachers are asking parents, hey, could you send this, could you send that? Not all parents could afford to send their kids with consistent things every single time. And so I think it's important that teachers don't have to pay out of their own pocket for something as simple as pencils, erasers, Kleenex. I think it's important that they get provided that. So number one, we need to pay teachers more, and we need to provide them with the tools that they need to teach our kids, our children that are in school. Another thing is that, being in school is hard for some kids. Some kids learn faster or slower than others. And so I think minimizing the classrooms for the teachers is important. I've heard of teachers having like 30 kids in one class. So I think that's also important to look at.
I think this is more a question for the school board commissioners because they have the resources, the power, and the position to address this. But I'm going to give it a shot as a city council member, and I am president of Christian Heritage US, where I teach kids. I put 50 kids in a class, and I teach them about difference between a wage worker and an entrepreneur, and I try to motivate them to get out of the mindset that this is all you can be because you're a minority. I try to show them the aspects of wealth and all this kind of stuff. Sadly, what we're dealing in this country today is if you look at Tony Robbins and all these people making millions of dollars, you have powerful people going to be motivated because where they are is not enough for them. And the teachers and the students, where they were, they are now back here as far as motivation is concerned. So they are not motivated. They are back here complacent. I don't feel like going to school in 4 days, 5 days. It should be an ambition in the kid. It should be an ambition in a mother to say to your kids, we're not going to be poor, we're not going to be this, we're going to be everything, and we're going to go to school, we're going to study, we're going to work hard, we're going to get you that education so you can get a good job. This is what we need to do to beat the next guy. This is what we're going to do from a minority perspective to not let people who are privileged get the job, but we want the job too. We want a seat at the table. So let's get out of this pandemic, let's get out of this mood, let's get out of this mode and be what we need to be. And so as a mother, as a parent, you need to get that into your kid and motivate them that you're not going to be nothing, you're going to be somebody. And to be somebody, you got to fight, you got to learn and learn and learn and learn and train yourself to be that. So don't let the pandemic beat you, beat it. So 4 to 5 days, it doesn't matter. Somebody said that 4 days is actually working and improving. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, go back to 5. But you need to motivate your kid and tell him, you're not going to be poor, you're not going to be behind, and if you stay complacent, you are going to be. So you have to motivate your child and yourself. Thank you.
I agree with Denise here that a 4-day school week is not a workable thing. People, working families, need their children in school 5 days a week. That's what their family economy is based on. They don't have the money to pay, and it's a lot of money for all the extracurricular stuff. Try keeping your child occupied all summer long and you could go bankrupt. So, in my opinion, we need 5 days a week at school. They need to be productive, where the children are coming out with a good education. And we need teachers that feel a calling. It used to be it was a calling. It was like being a pastor. You wanted to help children. We need to pay them adequately. We need to make sure that the children that are coming through the schools have a good home environment. That's one thing we need to focus on, is that when the children come to school, they have a respect for the teachers, that it isn't turning into a really crisis-oriented job every day, that the teachers want to come in because the parents are there to support them. So let's, as the city council, make sure that we support teachers and the community that they serve. The parents need to respect them. The children need to be taught to respect the teachers. And 5 days a week will help our children become the productive, educated citizens we need, whether they go to trade school, straight out of high school, or during high school they go to trade school and then come out of high school and work, or they go on to college. We need the children's education to be a top priority. Happy teachers, supportive parents, 5 days a week.
Thank you very much, everyone. We are going to move forward to questions about the electrical grid, energy, and technology. Before I ended up reading the statement and asking this first question, I do want to point out that although these particular questions might not be specific to the work that the Dallas City Council does, it is important to be able to know your individual thought processes whenever it comes to these questions. That gives everyone the opportunity to have a fuller understanding of how you will be able to approach different issues, questions, and challenges that you may face in this role. So with that, the question that I have about the electrical grid, energy, and technology is this. At the beginning of February, late January, the state of Texas faced a storm that left thousands in Dallas without power. And again, this past week, we faced another storm where thousands were once again left without power. To many in the city, this seems like a far too often regular occurrence, especially considering the fact that they may find themselves without power, but they may be able to see the Dallas skyline lit up. My question is this: what can and should the Dallas City Council do to make sure that there is more of an equitable access to energy throughout the city, but also to make sure that in the event of situations like we found ourselves in last week, that people in the city are able to have power?
I'm an electrical engineer, so I read up my technical papers about what's happening. I think it's a mistake for Dallas, or not for Dallas, for Texas to have their own electric grid system. Definitely there's better, it's best to have a national grid system so that if something fails someplace, the grid system, it's like a spider's web. It can supply the power and to that area. The other thing is in Dallas, they're losing power. People lose power because of tree limbs falling on the lines or ice. They need to go through the city and make sure that all the lines are clear. Like in Puerto Rico, there's a 300-foot distance between the electric pylons and the trees. We just need to clean up the city and stop these things happening as soon as we get an ice storm or something like that the branches fall on the power lines.
Thank you. When citizens lose power, our residents lose power, that is a quality of life issue. One of the things I want to make sure that is our quality of life continues to improve within District 3. Obviously, lack of power is a quality of life issue. The reasons behind the lack of power, I think, is building those relationships. I know we have the ongoing relationships with Encore and things like that, but I think it's just continuing to foster those relationships so that if these things happen that are out of our control, we can make sure that the response time to get people back up and running adequately and effectively and efficiently is in place. And I think we've been through enough of these disasters, that our response time should be just a little bit better, whether it's the situation with Atmos Energy a couple of years ago in the gas lines and things like that, or it's the power being out. Again, I want to focus on the response time, whether it's response time for crime, response time for services. I think I want to make sure that we are prepared as a city, whatever services and roles that we have to address and help in that space, that we're equipped to do that and play our role. I think understanding making sure everybody knows who's on first when these natural disasters occur is important. And I think one of the things I'd like to look at is having more conversations. When I was at the City of Dallas, we worked on continuing the operations in the event of natural disasters, and everybody in the city kind of knew, the fire department, the procurement. I think we need to do a citywide something like that as well, to make sure that the city and all of its functions can continue operating as quickly as possible when these type of events happen. But quality of life and the public service and the customer service associated with it will be a priority if I'm elected, when I'm elected.
When the winter storm hit, my husband and I we got really busy feeding people, because the people that my nonprofit serves, La Monarca Foundation, they were calling us, saying they had no light, they had no food, they had no heat. And I remember we drove all the way to Fort Worth, and I remember seeing the Cowboy Stadium lit up. And I was so upset, because I was like, so many people are suffering right now in the cold with no food, so many children suffering. And yet the Cowboy Stadium was lit up, like just bright. And so I think it's important to hold people accountable. That is the kind of leadership that I am, and that's the kind of leader that I'm going to be when I'm elected. Holding people accountable, calling people out, and telling them how they are failing our community. The whole state was almost at the point of losing light, the whole state. Thankfully, my neighborhood, we had light, so I was able to cook and feed people. I was taking food to warming stations, because we had buses at different rec centers that were warming people up, and we were taking coffee, hot chocolate, pan dulce, soup to different warming stations, because, again, our government failed us. So holding people accountable and making sure that they upgrade our grid and invest the money that has to be invested, and stop cutting corners. Because this is a quality of life issue. There are seniors that died because it was so cold for them. And so, again, holding people accountable, and that is the type of councilwoman that I will be. I will hold people accountable, I will make those phone calls that are needed, and I will call these people out to make sure that all people have a good quality of life, and that never happens again.
I think the question of the grid is beyond the scope of the Dallas City Council. I mean, it's more of a state issue. But when we had the outage, I was out doing videos, showing people how to open up the outside pipelines and shut it off when the temperature dropped, so they won't have their pipes burst. I was at Home Depot, I was at Kroger's, I was everywhere showing them where's fire logs, where's the water, where's the milk, who's out, who isn't out. And that's because I wasn't a city council member. If I was a city council member, the first thing that I'm going to do, and I said it before, there will be a District 10 Office of Emergency Management, specifically for my district, to respond. I can only respond. I can't tell the governor what to do. People tried, and he still won the election. So the thing is, we can only respond, and you have to have a preemptive strike, which is you have to go outside and look at all the trees that are sitting on those lines, that when they are not cut, they will break those lines, and you're going to have an outage. And when there is an outage, how fast is the response time to get to that? So I think we have to have a response time, analyze the response time, and tell the people, look, if 5 of these lines are broke, how fast can we get it fixed? So we need to have a book created ahead of time to tell the people 5 lines, we can fix it within 6 hours, and then we need to have that ready. It's not ready, there's no vision for it, and I will try to create a response to the outage instead of trying to do what the governor is supposed to be doing. And my Office of Emergency Management will respond to weather, to crime, to shootings, to everything else. And I think that would be incorporated in it. A preemptive strike to stop it from happening. And when it does happen, can we get the fire department, the police department, and shared services, not just with Dallas, SID, and the county to respond all three together. So we're not alone in this. Thank you.
Yeah, emergency preparedness should be a top priority for the city council, and I agree. My District 13 will be a place that will be unique in that we will have emergency preparedness in place for our district, but the city council as a whole needs to take a stand and be prepared. I was looking online and I saw that we still have a city council subcommittee for COVID. I didn't see anything for emergencies. And together we need to make ourselves prepared, educate the public. What is it? Where is your meter box? Where is everything that supplies your house with energy? Where can you help yourself? What steps can you take to be prepared in case of an emergency and in case you don't have power or heat? Educate the community, but the city council needs to be in touch all the time with our utilities and make sure that the infrastructure is kept up and that we know what the response times are and where to go first. No hospital grid should go down, that's for sure. So anyone who lives within an area of a hospital should feel safe that their utilities will continue to be operational even in an emergency. And then everything else needs to be closely adjoined with that. I think that's what I have to say about it. As far as the power grid goes, all we can do is react. We cannot control it.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your responses. We are going to move forward to infrastructure questions. In 2016, the Dallas Morning News was told that the city of Dallas needed to spend $128 million every year to maintain overall street condition with zero degradation. Since that time, street quality, especially streets in Black, Hispanic, and Asian communities, have continued to have poor conditions. In fact, a 2022 SMU study determined that there are 62 infrastructure deserts in Dallas, in predominantly minority communities. And these would be considered small-scale areas, such as structures and facilities that need support, such as sidewalks, crosswalks, and public transportation access, which are considered highly deficient. My question is this: these complaints and concerns are certainly not new, especially for the community members who live in these infrastructure deserts. What would you do in your role if you were elected to be city councilor to make sure that these community members are heard and help resolve these issues to make sure that they are not continue to worsen?
I live in uptown Dallas, so we don't really have those kind of problems in uptown, downtown, District 10. Yes, there's potholes and the potholes need to get fixed. But if I was a city councillor I would be given every support to these other districts. They're entitled to have good roads, even sidewalks, and all the other things that go towards a quality of life. I would be supporting those councillors.
What we're talking about here is just equity in terms of public service. I keep stressing this: public service, customer service, equity. This is one of those situations. I've worked in the city. I know the red tape and the necessary red tape, and I understand what some of those excuses are, and I understand the story behind those excuses. As a council member and a former city employee, they understand that it's going to be really hard to tap dance with me, because I understand one of the things is just absolute accountability. absolute accountability. They're going to tell, well, these roads aren't as bad. They're a grade C, grade B compared to some of the other roads and things like that. Well, I'm not necessarily interested in the grades. I'm interested in the last time these roads been fixed and what we're going to do about it. And this is, I'm going to call it absolute accountability. There is no acceptable answer to allow these streets to go untreated, to allow these sidewalks to go untreated, to allow the services not to be received, particularly in the southern sector. So for me, it is going to be a level of accountability that's there, and it's going to be a consistent accountability and a relentless accountability to the point that if those things aren't being addressed, we will begin to have conversations in terms of calling them to the horseshoes so they can publicly explain why those issues, particularly in District 3, have not been addressed, whether it's streets, whether it's the trash not being picked up consistently, the recycle not being picked up consistently. There is no acceptable answer for that.
I'm not waiting till I'm elected to bring this issue up and to help my community, especially the Hispanic community, figure out how to address this issue. I live in Southern Oak Cliff, part of my district, which is one of the most underserved parts of my district. I live in a highly Hispanic district, which again, leadership has failed the Hispanic people in my district. As I block walk, and I hear conversations that people are having with me about how they're being underserved, one of the biggest things are potholes, their trash not being picked up, just various things like that. What I'm doing right now is I'm addressing with the community how they could go through 311 and see if they can get that stuff looked at, but I'm also directing them to our current councilperson's office and making sure that they call him and let him know, hey, we're having these issues and we're severely underserved. Arcadia Park is in my district. All Hispanic people. Not once has anybody gone over there to help them with their infrastructure. They have flooding issues because of the area that they're in. When it rains, it floods a lot, and they're being told, well, don't build your house there. These are communities that have been there for a very long time. You have generations of families there in areas like Arcadia Park. And so it's important to address these severely neglected areas, especially the Hispanic districts that have been severely underserved for many, many years. And so I'm already addressing these issues. I'm figuring out in my campaign how we're gonna get these issues fixed and how we're gonna make sure that we hold people accountable and we make sure that there's correct infrastructure, especially in the southern part of my district.
So your question was minority community and what can you do to be heard? In District 10, it's not just potholes in minority community, there's potholes in the white community. There's construction that needed in the white community as well. So it's not just minority, but if you want minority representation, go vote District 10 number 3. And I'll be there for you. So what can you do to be heard? So I was a president of a newspaper, and I would go to the council meeting for over a decade, and I would sit right over there to the right. I had 3 writers, and they would say, Mr. Serrano, why are you here? Why are you here when we're here? And I said, because I see things that you don't see on the council members. I see the interaction. I see the kind of deals happening there that you guys don't see. And so for District 10, I will be open. So we're going to have a local office. We get a local office. I'm always in the community. My office will address issues. The community will come in, and they will be able to speak to me directly. You're not going to be a liaison. You come to speak to me directly. We're going to be open. Hey, Mr. Serrano, this is happening. That's happening. Not just potholes, but everything else. Because the question was, would you be heard? Now, on Forest Lane in District 10, they fixed one little stress, $20 million. Another little strip, same strip, $25 million. And then they came back for another $7 million. So one of the things as far as road construction and things that I'm going to do is an investigation to find out why it is 3 times you fix this and it's still destroyed. So I'm going to make sure that I am there to listen to people. I'm there for the minority community and the white community stuff that's happening over there too. And if it's not happening fast enough, why is it not happening fast enough? Money's coming from, not our budget, from the outside federal government to fix these streets. So where's the money going? How fast is it going to fix these streets? And my job is to find that answer for you. My job is to bring it to you and find out if there's anything that I can do with the tools of my office to make it happen effectively and efficiently. Thanks.
Well, I'm white, and my street isn't at all perfect. It gets torn up. I've lived in this house for 11 years. 5 times it's been torn up by Atmos and kind of patched. It's getting worse and worse. I can barely drive down my alley because of all the potholes. In my opinion, as a city council person, I need to evaluate all of the streets and alleys and infrastructure. I want to know, I think, does the city council currently look at the demographic of a community and decide to spend money there? Or are we looking at need? We should be looking at where was the last problem? Where was the last street repaired? How does it look? Are we making the utility companies that keep digging up the streets and causing even worse problems, are we making them take out a permit, and does the building department come out and inspect it after to make sure the street has been restored to what it was before? Or do they say, this is a Hispanic community, therefore we're not going to come out and fix it? I'm not really sure what's going on, but as a city council member, to me, where it's needed, we go. We fix it. It doesn't matter what the composite of the community is. We want better streets. We deserve it. We pay a ton of money. There's a lot of money coming in for the federal government and from our local taxes. Every street should be good. We should have sidewalks, no potholes, and accountability for people who are making repairs at our expense to make things right.
Thank you very much. Now, this is going to be a slight follow-up question to the question that I just posed as it relates to infrastructure, and it's also going to involve the city's budget as well. So to put the previous question in context, according to that same SMU report, low-income neighborhoods in Dallas are 2.2 to 3.5 times more likely to have highly deficient infrastructure than low-income areas. Additionally, predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhoods are up to 5 times and up to 3 times more likely, respectively, than predominantly white neighborhoods to be highly deficient. In fact, the same research was conducted for the cities of New York City, Chicago, and Los Angeles, and compared to those cities, Dallas had the worst infrastructure conditions and the highest inequity of those cities. So whenever it comes to the city's budget, considering some of these issues that we've discussed so far, what would your priorities be when it comes to the city's budget?
When it comes to the city's budget, my priorities will be to to do the best that I can to give support to the other districts that are having problems. I've realized today, just listening to the conversations and the answers, that yes, there is a big difference between the north area of Dallas and the southern, like Oak Cliff and these other districts. So yes, I will give my support to the city councillors for these districts.
Again, when working in the city of Dallas, one of the things I remember us going through was a budgeting for outcomes. That was the approach that we would take to the budgeting process. We wanted to make sure we were budgeting for the outcomes that we desired. Say what you want about T.C. Broadnax, but when he came in, I have a tremendous respect for a Black man that comes into this city, understanding the history of this city and introducing boldly equity. We changed and started budgeting for equity. I will continue ensuring that that becomes the conversation, because when you're budgeting for equity, the conversation between your colleagues that should change if everybody is for equity. And when you do that, again, looking at some of the stats that you just listed, understanding that there's been a historical neglect in the southern sector, budgeting for equity should be an easy conversation with some fighting. I understand it's going to take that, but that's not anything that I'm a stranger to. I've been fighting for equity even as a city employee and will continue to do that. But Budgeting for equity says that we're going to look at our pool of money, that $4 billion, and we're going to make sure that those funds get allocated in a way that we no longer ignore the studies that all of these professionals are doing across the city. We no longer ignore that, but now our budget and our actions as council members are now reflecting those studies and making sure that we're there to address it. Again, extreme accountability from there, and hopefully we'll have colleagues that we can work with who appreciate equity, and it won't be that big of a discussion to have.
The important part is identifying the issues in the southern sector that are neglected, which are a lot. If you're not driving through your district, through your community, then what are you doing? So also it's important that the southern sector of Dallas gets their money before North Dallas when it comes to bond money. A lot of the times, North Dallas gets their money first on their bonds, and then our money for the southern part of Dallas gets extended throughout 4 or 5 years projects. Why? When the southern sector is highly neglected, as we can tell, with somebody that lives in Uptown, doesn't have the issues as somebody like myself who lives in the south part of Oak Cliff. So, southern part of Dallas needs to get their bond money first to fix our streets, to fix our infrastructure. Luckily, I'm married to a mechanic, so every time my car gets hit with a pothole, my husband fixes it, but not everybody has that ability. So it's important that we identify the parts of the southern sector of Dallas that are being neglected and talk to the community when these bond meetings come up so that they could have conversations of the streets that need to get fixed, because obviously the people that live there are the ones that can tell us what needs to get fixed, and making sure that we get our bond money first before the northern part of Dallas gets it.
So the budget as it relates to minorities, Dallas did a study, spent $1 million to find out you can't have these conversations without talking about racism and redlining. So $1 million, and that was the answer. I've been following this for 5 years. So as far as the budget is concerned, you're talking about investment into the minority community, which is not there. So in my district, we're segregated. We're like Highlands, where mostly white people live. Over here, it's like a maroon. And we always get an official over here that looks out for over here. But being a minority, I get to look out for here and them, because my wife happens to be white. So the budget must focus on raising the standard of the minority community. Right now in District 10, they want to dump all kind of minority poverty housing there. And we got Walmart, we got 99-cent stores. That doesn't help us. So what I would do is I would speak to TC, because no one else can make a decision on the city council unless you have 8 votes without the city manager. I've already in discussion with the city manager about having a multi-purpose center in District 10 and having to raise the standard of that community. Would stop telling people that we can invest millions of dollars into that part of District 10 for jobs and for security and for, raising, telling kids and telling the community we can do better. We can do them better as minorities. Don't treat us as if we are low qualified people. So as far as the budget is concerned, I would put more investment in my community, District 10, to raise the standard and stop all the dumping of low housing and low businesses going on there. I would raise it, increase the mentality, and then put the money in there to show us that we can do more. Thank you.
Interesting conversation here. I'm not sure what's going on in the city council right now when I hear that different segments of our beautiful Dallas are being treated differently. How come people individually aren't being accused or just taken out of the hiding if they're on purpose keeping certain parts of our community from having the infrastructure they need? You shouldn't have to realign your car every week or whatever it is, or get new tires all the time in any community. So I guess listening to my fellow candidates here, my thinking is, as a whole, as the city council is a productive, unified group, that if we're going to hire outside consultants, let's look at the whole picture, focus on what actually needs to be done so our community overall has a more equal feel. I've driven in downtown Dallas, and I feel like I'm in some third world country on some of those streets. They're horrible. I have a friend who lives in South Dallas, a very good black friend of mine, and I asked her, is crime really a big issue with you? She goes, even more the streets, they're horrible. So, you know, my streets may not be as bad. I don't get why the city council is discriminating against certain parts of the community. Let's look at it all. Let's make all of our streets good. If that's where the money needs to be sent to a part of our community that happens to be Hispanic, so be it. We're just looking at equality in streets. It doesn't have anything to do with what color we are. Let's make them all good. I can't believe they've been discriminating on that level.
Thank you very much to the candidates for answering that question. The final question of the day is going to be this, and then after I ask this question, I'll give every candidate an opportunity to provide a closing statement for why they should be elected. Considering all the issues whenever it comes to diversity and equity in the city of Dallas, and also some of the issues that it pointed out whenever it came to contracts, are you in favor or against diversity quotas and minimums in order to make sure that there is minority representation whenever it comes to the workforce and whenever it comes to contracts?
Yes. Yes, I agree that there should be quotas, but you've got to be careful with the quotas. What I've found is that the quota's there, and it gives a minority business, he or she gets the job. But it's a one person that benefits from that. That minority owner goes and hires a load of white people. And it's not, the minorities are not getting they're not getting the work, they're not getting the training, they're not getting the salary. So it's one person gets a check every month because he's a minority, and the minorities' workforce, they're not getting the work. So that needs to be tightened up. If they're given a quota to a minority candidate, a minority firm, that firm should be hiring minorities.
When I was in procurement, we worked a lot. Obviously, I ran the Office of Business Diversity, and that was our primary responsibility, was ensuring that we had minority participation on city contracts and things like that. They were goals that were set based on the availability and disparity study. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not necessarily a quota. It is what it is based on the study. We understand that this is how much is available in terms of minority women-owned businesses. And so with that said, there are goals that are already established on all of the city contracts. I think it is important that that Office of Business Diversity, City Council, TC, and all of us continue to enforce what's already in place. The other thing that we've done, many people may or may not know this, but before contracts are awarded, one of the requirements for those prime contractors is to submit their ethnic workforce composition, because we're looking at that and we want to know, one, do you have minorities? Not just do you have minorities, but we also looking at how many minorities do you have in executive roles, management roles, entry-level roles, and just the day-to-day roles. We're looking at all of that even before that contract is awarded. So we're doing that. We also put in place local preference, and we put in living wage. Most recently, the city said that all city employees will be making, I think it's $18 an hour. Living wage says that any business doing, any company doing business with the city of Dallas is now required to pay their folks at least $17.82 in a wage. So we're not just looking at the makeup of the ethnic makeup of their workforce, but we're also making sure that they're getting paid a quality wage. So whether they, you know, again, if they're on a city contract, whether their standard is $15 an hour, they're required to meet the living wage requirement. So not only are we looking at the diversity of their workforce, but we're making sure they're being paid a living wage to thrive.
Yes, 100% we need to involve the community, the minority community in this. You guys hear me talk a lot about the Hispanic community. yes, the Hispanic community is not knowledgeable of what is going on pretty much in the city of Dallas. And so we need to encourage these minority-owned businesses, whether it's woman-owned, LGBTQ-owned, Hispanic-owned, Black-owned, to participate in these type of just jobs and opportunities that the city of Dallas has. That needs to be a priority. I mean, I don't want to bring this up, but you know, Texas used to be Mexico. So I mean, if we're not coming out and talking about the minority community, especially the Hispanic community, then what are we doing? You know, we need to give all minority communities, especially the Hispanic community, and I'm talking about it specifically because in my district, the Hispanic voice has continuously been ignored. Now, I am here for all people. I just want to let the people know that. But the fact is that the Hispanic community has not been uplifted in our district, and so in order to uplift them means involving them, involving everybody, LGBTQ, Black, and Hispanic, in all the stuff that happens in the city of Dallas, especially when it comes to jobs and business opportunities and opportunities to grow.
I'm going to sit down for this one. You know, in my District 10, they vote that way. They pick a white candidate, they spend a lot of money, and that's their quota. They must get a white candidate in District 10. So if I would have flipped that and said, should we have the quota for white candidate only, I'd say I got a problem with that. You know, I talked about fair share. If it discriminates against qualified Black-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses, yes, let's do that quota. But I believe in the best man for the job. That's my thing, the best man for the job. Who's the best man for the job? If it happens to be a white person and they can build that street better, I can say, hey, quota forbids me from hiring you because I got to put a Black person in the job. And I don't know what they're going to do, or Hispanic or somebody like me. I don't know what they're going to do. But if your company is more qualified, I got to pick the qualified company. But we have racism in District 10 in Dallas. We have discrimination. We have disenfranchising going on. So I understand the question, and it's necessary to have fair share. So if that eliminates the discrimination and the redlining and give it all to white companies, yeah, then yes, let's look into that, but make sure we have fair share with equal opportunities for the right man for the job. So it's not, you can't say yes or no to this because of that discrimination and because you have qualified people that may not get the job. So if I'm the council person, I would kind of have, you know, is there racism here? Is there discrimination? Yes, then let's put that in place. If there isn't in that sector and it's the best person for that job, then let's not. So I will kind of do fair share on that one as well. Thanks.
Yeah, I think our real goal is to make sure that every community knows about the opportunities. Going back to the convention center that's going to be built, $2 billion. I wish we could just have a blindfold on. We could look at bids because the opportunities have been proclaimed loudly and to every corner of our city. Here are the opportunities. Here's what you can do to build this. Here's what, regardless of who you are, you bring us a bid, you bring us your workforce, and if you're the best company, people, person for the job, you're gonna get hired. We take the blindfold off. If it turns out they're all white, of course we have to pay attention to that. Why is that? And we do want a diverse representative community serving and being part of our community, and we want to blend and not have all this divisiveness. Let's look at capabilities and make sure that everybody in our entire community knows the opportunities that are there. They have equal opportunity to apply and be chosen. And as a city council member representing District 13, it would be my job, my honor to make sure that everybody is engaged and that we have a productive, great community. That's what it's all about.
Thank you very much. So lastly, this is going to be the closing statement. For each of you, you're only going to have 1 minute in order to be able to provide your closing statement. And if you wouldn't mind, just please, once again, just sharing your name and the district that you're running for and why people should vote for you. Thank you.
My name is Joseph Miller. I'm a professional engineer, now retired, and I hope to represent District 14. I came here to listen, and it's been very enlightening for me to hear how, let's say, the other half live. Don't write me off because I'm some rich kid or son that came from, lives in Uptown. I came from poorest slums in Glasgow, Scotland, when I was growing up. I know what it's like to live in an apartment with my two brothers and my mother and father with a one bedroom. We never had an inside toilet. I cannot forget that. I don't want people to be living like that now. That's why I'm here. I want to make a difference in people's life.
Again, to New Hope Baptist Church, thank you all for inviting us and having us here. My name is Zarin Gracie. I'm running for District 3 City Council. I am on place 3 for District 3. Vote for me. But listen, I've spent my career serving. And the moment that I realized that God put it on my heart that I was a public servant, I've been doing it full speed ever since. You have a unique opportunity to vote for someone, elect someone that has a perspective of city staff. I've served as planning commissioner, Public Facilities Corporation. I have that perspective. And then coming in to offer a unique leadership role on the city council with those perspectives. I'm running because we do understand what those needs are. I've been fighting for those needs, and quite honestly, I hit a ceiling inside of City Hall. So I want to be able to take that influence and my experience and have an impact outside. Vote for Zarin.
I want to thank the church for inviting us. My name is Denise Benavides. I'm also running in District 3. And I think it's important that we elect me because, number one, I'm diverse. I'm the only bilingual candidate that is running for this seat. I am the only woman that's running for this seat, and I think that should be acknowledged and applauded because women weren't able to vote for a very long time. So the fact that we're in these spaces is very important. And I'm also the only Hispanic running for this seat, and let me tell you, there has never been a Hispanic in this district. I bring up the Hispanic thing a lot. I'm here for all people, but the Hispanic voice has been elected in our district. There's a lot of underserved parts of our district, and I am fully bilingual. The reason why I think I should be voted in is because I can serve all people. I can speak the language, both Spanish and English, fluently. I am number 5 in the ballot, and they save the best for last.
My name is Serrano Keith Baldio. I'm running in Dallas District 10, number 3. You don't see my opponents here, and that's evidence of they don't care about the minority community, because if they did, they'd be here fighting for you. My district is the last councilman leaving. He's the one that voted for the Confederate monument, and 2 of the people financed him doing that. It's 181 years of white rule, and I'm trying to break that to give us a seat at the table. I am a Christian. I am running because of my faith. My sister told me, you'll be the first minority, you'd be the first immigrant, you're the first Caribbean, the first West Indian, the first Trinidadian, and the first exotic man to be running for this office. I said, okay, hold it up with the exotic stuff. I'll take the rest. So I bring change. I bring change. I bring a new vision. I bring something different to Dallas, not just District 10. And I'm asking you to support me. You can go to Serrano2023.com. We're just putting stuff up. SIRRANO 2023. And I hope you support me, even if you don't live in my district. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. My name is Priscilla Shacklett, PriscillaForDallas.com, if you want to see my website. I have a really strong business background. I feel like we need an objective look at where our dollars are coming from, who's spending them, where they're going, and my energies will be 100%. I don't have any other job right now except to serve Dallas. My energies will be spent 100% to make all of Dallas better. I'm listening, I'm hearing community issues. I want to work with people. I want to see what's going on where I don't live. And I want to help and make Dallas a better place for everybody. Priscilla Shacklett, PriscillaForDallas.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know there There's some group of us in here, so let's just give a round of applause for the candidates for showing up. Thank you very much. Give everyone an opportunity to be able to mingle a little bit, but before I do that, I want to make sure I turn the mic over to Ms. Wicks.
Thank you, Attorney Bedford. You did a phenomenal job moderating today. Let's give him a hand. And I do want to acknowledge Attorney Kaylin Dixon, who served as our timekeeper today. Thank you, Counselor. To Mr. Lewis Bedford III, served as our videographer. Thank you. Our cameraman for today. Thank you, sir. And our AV person is Deacon Cedric Haggerty. He's running around here multitasking as always. Thank you. And also, we had support from the office staff. I don't want to ignore the hardworking people behind the scenes. Our executive secretary and administrator is Heather Gary, and of course, our building facilitator, Mr. Biggers. We thank them for their support. Also, before we go, our pastor wanted you to know that we will be, as I stated before, we want you to save the date for our 150th anniversary celebration, which will be here Sunday, July the 23rd, 2023. The theme is Changing Seasons, Unchanging God, Lamentations 3, verses 22 and 23. That's a message from our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Damian Williams. So on behalf of the Government and Political Relations Committee of the New Hope Baptist Church, we want to say thank you so much for you sharing your time with us. If you have printed materials, we would like to have that. If you don't have them with you today, the office will be open during the week from 9 until about 4:30, and we would love to have your information. New Hope Baptist Church is a nonpartisan church. We do have members of the Republican and Democratic parties that are a part of our congregation, and we are nonpartisan. We do not endorse any candidates, but we do offer the opportunity for candidates to let us know who they are and what they stand for. So on behalf of the Government and Political Relations Committee, we're going to bid you good day after we hear a benediction from our pastor emeritus, Reverend Dr. Ronald E. Jones. Look forward to another political forum for the educational realm that will be coming at another time, and we will give you further information on that later. Thank you.
I'll just do it from here. I think I can project. Before, I congratulate all of you who are running and offering your talents and your time to serve this great community. And thank you for being here today. With that, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Eternal Father, thank you for being part of this gathering as we are continuing to do our duty to respect those who serve and govern us and encourage those who seek to govern. We pray that you be with these candidates as they go forward to maintain their openness, their transparency, and I pray, God, whoever gets elected, that they make a commitment to be available and accessible, not only to their constituents, but to all the citizens and business people who seek their service, their advice, and their leadership, and enable them to be mindful that the members of New Hope Baptist Church live in all the different districts and all parts of this county, and we stand ready to support and render our aid to them as well. Be with them and guide them, protect them from harm and danger, and all of us who have gathered in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen, amen, amen.